Have you got any questions for me?
I'm wondering. Obviously, you're engaging with a lot of people with lived experience and so on. Is there a vision for you emerging of how you see the lived experience movement being brought forward? What have you heard that you think is really enabling things to change, and what do you think the challenges are that we need to look at?
I'll start with how I dream of it as like my future vision of lived experience, which might give answer to all aspects, is that I think peer support, especially, there are different applications of lived experience, but specifically peer support, I think should happen in the community. Not that it shouldn't happen on wards or anything, but as a general execution, I would love to see that in every aspect of public service. What do I mean by that? So if you're working, if you have a housing department, people who have lived experience of homelessness should work there. If you should have a peer support team in fire brigade for recovery after going through a fire. So basically, I would love to see representatives of lived experience in that area working for the people and with the people and inform every aspect of that public service. I think that would make a huge difference in every aspect. Another very inspiring part of peer support is the connection aspect. I think I found my own recovery and healing through the work I do by connecting people from very different backgrounds, very different walks of life, and that kept me hopeful. I'm not a person who is very good at hope. My advantage is I don't wait to feel hopeful to take action, but it can leave areas for really dark periods of time if you don't have to hope while you are taking action. I would love to see that happening in local authorities, in every public service, and I would love to have a peer hub in every neighborhood for whatever people are going through, to drop in. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, you just reminded me something there. I love what you said there about, the connection being so important. And, to me, you're talking about the gift of time there, because if you're somebody who's really struggling and you've lost your sense of self-worth, somebody just to give you time and be in your presence. And to me, that the essence of peer support is that you don't come with an agenda. It's just you're present to the person, and whatever they need, you're there to to be with them in that moment. So I think that's beautiful. Thank you.
Have you got any questions for me?
What's your vision for this series that you have done so creatively and interestingly, which I can't wait to see the whole thing? What effect do you want it to have?
First of all, I hope everybody feels like that. That's great to hear. Thank you for that. It came about, number one, I love talking, as everybody can recognize, but number two, because I do peer support in a room one-to-one, and I have, of course, conversations with my colleagues in breaks, but those sessions bring up so much stuff that I want to talk about, but I never get a chance to do so. And whenever I mentioned this, anyone I met in research world, in other trusts, in different executions of this work, and they all said, yes, it's so needed. We experience the same. We don't have any space to talk about the lines in between. And that's how the podcast came about, actually. So I just wanted to show other people, look at all these amazing people I know. They are so inspiring. And whenever I talk about any of these guests and even more people I meet, through the other, conferences I go and other projects I do, people find it inspiring as well. And it's so important for people who this work in an isolated way to remember that we're more crowded than we think. There are more people doing their best. There are more allies we think there are. We just don't feel it. So I hope people will feel that by listening to all of you.
You know, we talk about peer work, so amplifying the voice of the people, and you are literally doing that by capturing different perspectives and voices and allowing it to be available to more people. I'm grateful that you've done that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Where do you see yourself going with all this? I guess the creativity and your lived experience is like, I'd like to know, how do you see yourself maybe in future? What brings you joy?
So, how do I see myself in the future rarely brings me joy. So, we're going to have to separate those two questions.
Okay.
So, what brings me joy is doing this, connecting with people, talking to people, hearing their stories, and sharing my own. It is on a day-to-day basis what brings me joy. Comedy always brings me joy, and they're not too far away from each other in the way I consume stories. How do I see myself in the future is once I moved to the UK with such an uncertain future in front of me, I kind of lost sight of vision of me in the future. So I can say that I can only see a very short while into the future. And if I go further than that, let's say further than 3 years, it's all catastrophe. So I'll just skip that part. And bear in mind, I have generalized anxiety disorder most likely since birth. So it would happen that way. So continuing talking to people, and one thing I found out while doing the podcast last year and recording this season is I am also on a journey while I'm talking in the episodes. So I am kind of finding, hopefully, my kind of ideal format to talk to people. And finally, I think I found my aim is I started with there are so many great people we don't know about each other, and it will give us so much more hope and energy and boost to keep moving because it's really challenging being a lived experience professional. But then when I start talking about the past, we're always in the past. We can't see future. It's not in our control. But I realize there isn't any space to celebrate today. And the people I know, yes, I want to be able to celebrate everybody who is out there. But I finally decide that let me start somewhere and start the celebration. So I think moving forward in the next 3 years, I want to do this, talking to people, celebrating their work, and letting other enthusiastic people know about them and each other, so to speak. Thank you for the question. Have you got any questions for me, Michael?
So, Neil, after spending the last half an hour or so talking about lived experience and what it means to me as both an individual with lived experience and also as a researcher who writes about lived experience. But I would like to ask you in return, what does lived experience mean to you?
At this point in life, it means the life itself and livelihood, because now I have been doing it for 8 years. But when my friends learned what was my latest job was, they said, "Oh, brilliant, you have been doing it all your life and now someone is paying you. That's great." From a very young age, I was obsessed with finding my calling. I don't know why. I don't know if I saw it in a film. And for a long, long time, until from the age of 10 to 18, I dreamed about being an actress. It wasn't for me, but I didn't know that back then. And then when I didn't get into art school in Turkey, but I got into the best university, and I wasn't happy because it wasn't the school I wanted. I felt really lost for a long time. So when I found lived experience work totally by coincidence, it was like a new lease of life. I found it in the darkest period of my life. And it became the recovery journey of myself as well as other people. I am still going through this recovery thanks to people I work with. So because it was magical that all the things you named as a problem, as a challenge, as something to get rid of, becomes an expertise overnight. Obviously, it doesn't come overnight, but in my conscious, when I learned about this work, oh my God, I can make something of my challenges and I can support other people and I can keep living. Yes, I am okay to live like this. Because someone who wrote a couple of lines in one of the events, I'm very sorry, I don't remember who gave me that note, but it was from a poem by Dar Williams called After All. And it says, and when I chose to live, there was no joy. It's just a line I crossed. So that's where I was when I found lived experience. And then life became more. So that's what it means to me.
Awesome.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
I'd just like to ask you, what gets you up in the morning and puts a smile on your face?
Well, I'm just recovering from a migraine attack, so smiling in the morning is a challenge. But definitely, at the moment, definitely this podcast, talking to people about what we do, 100%. Also, comedy, especially for the last year, Josh Johnson. I've been following up. I quite like him, and I find it the way he describes and explains stuff very aligned with the conversations in peer support world as well, in an interesting sense. And doing this job and my family. Of course. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are you more hopeful today than you were 5 years ago, let's say, in your peer career? If so, why? If not, why?
I would answer neutral. So when I first discovered lived experience, I was very hopeful because I had all these ideas where it could go, and I could see, because there was a national rollout for peer support in the NHS, I was also hopeful career wise. Now I am hopeful in the sense that I am meeting a lot of people who are doing all these types of lived experience work where it's not limited to doing this as a role in the NHS or in a charity. So I am hopeful in terms of bringing that passion into other areas in work. I want to be hopeful about, realistically seeing that I can do it. And this is part of it. This project is part of it, of where I want to take it. But because I am in it, it's too late to be hopeful, if it makes sense. Like when it comes to hope, when I start doing something, I don't know, this is my character. It's always been like that. If I'm hopeful about something, I'm not doing something about it. If I'm doing something about it, then hope doesn't come to my mind. Now I'm just too much in it. I don't know if it answers your
No,
question.
it does. It's a reality. I think we experience that with the people we talk to. It's like you build, like when you're at the beginning of that journey, right? You're like, oh, the world, there's so many options. And then you actually learn about how much power and influence you actually have. You're just like, oh, okay, it's slightly different now. I have to regroup.
Lisa, have you got a question for me?
What conversation do you think the peer support movement is avoiding? Is there something you think we need to be talking about but is uncomfortable, but we need to be having?
a lot of it, and I'm constantly thinking about it because we're not talking about it, but also I'm not comfortable enough, or I don't know where to bring it up. One thing is how we perceive each other in lived experience work. We're not talking about that. We're bringing old style of behavior from which we suffered, each of us, being judgmental about other people, being assumptions about other people's behavior, and not thinking about what we don't know. I think there is a real kind of trap in lived experience world, and I'm not excluding myself from falling into it, is that because our hurt, whatever was a problem in our lives, overnight becomes an expertise. Now we hold this holy knowledge about a very unique experience which resonates with a lot of people. Then we sometimes, I think, get lost in our experience, and then we lose sight of what we don't know about other people's experiences. Therefore, we start treating each other, especially under heavy pressure wherever we are doing this work. We start to then eliminate our own community, or they're not considering diversity in the way I would consider, or they're not yes, they might have lived experience, but they are still privileged. I get that a lot in my day-to-day work, from the people I work with, I mean the clients, to potentially colleagues, because they never think of me as an immigrant. They have absolutely no idea what I'm lacking in my life, and I don't talk about it. So we do, and I fell into this trap as well. So it's very important for me to underline, it's not a blame game I'm trying to do here. It's just in the nature of the work and in the nature of progress. Another thing is we're not curious enough about each other. It's related, but it's different. Um, After 5 years I was doing this work, I thought of Googling peer support on YouTube, searching, right? So, and I'm by nature, I'm a very curious person. I love hearing about people's experiences, but it took 5 years for me to think about that. So we don't read about it, we don't ask about it, we don't search for it. Therefore, then we're not improving our practice. And when I say practice, I don't mean one-to-one sessions. I mean general practice. This is not a job. This is a vocation for all of us. There's no peer support person, lived experience person who is doing this without a passion, unless they are in a burnout. That's a condition. So I'm eliminating that. We all burn out, but like genuinely. So I think these would be the two things. There's a lot of it, but thank you for that question. I think it's very important. So I'm happy that I have this opportunity to talk about it. Have you got any questions for me, Ian?
Well, I'm wondering who you would most like to have on your podcast, if you could have anybody on your podcast.
Wow, that's a big question, and there are so many people. At the moment, so I can't give an overall answer, so I'll just reveal my latest obsession. I would love to talk about lived experience on air, be it my channel, be it their channel. Probably their channel is better, is with Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart.
Yeah.
In their podcast. I quite like the way they discuss. They introduced me to the concept of disagreeing agreeably. I don't have that mode, so I'm still training in that. But I think they do bring a lot of their lived experience that is relevant to their topic. And I think that's part of their success, frankly. So I'm also quite invested and obsessed with the idea of other professions using their lived experience apart from mental health. It always elevates and enriches the conversation, and people find it, I think, more intriguing. So I would love to talk about it with them. So that will be my answer. And then of course Beyonce, of course all of my favorite comedians recently, Josh Johnson, sky is the limit, but
Yeah. No,
yeah.
that's great. No, that's great. Great answer, Neil. Yes.
Thank you for your question. Is there anything else you would like to add today?
Just where else you see your podcast series going? This is series 1, is it? Or is this?
So for Peer Journal, it's series 1. I recorded an audio-only podcast for Community of Excellence, which is a lived experience network for North London. So it will be also on the channel. Where it is going, I would like to find a way to do it regularly. And so I don't go crazy around making deadlines, but I do have kind of a routine, even though routines I don't do very good. But that will be. So moving forward, I want to do seasons on more specific size of lived experience work, like doing the lived experience work in the NHS, and then talk to people who do this in the NHS, and then talking to different professionals in mental health about lived experience, like psychiatrists, clinical psychologists, social workers, um, and so on. I so many ideas, but let's see what will be possible.
Sounds absolutely great, Neil. I wish you all the best with that as well, and I should look forward to hearing how it all develops.
Have you got any questions for me, Renee?
The developments in NHS regarding peer expertise, because it was my understanding during my last visit to England, there's a deep investment in peer experts in England, with I think literally thousands of trained peer experts. Please tell me, how is that development going, and what are the strong points, maybe the tops and the tips from development in England. So what can we learn from development in England, and what do you see as for yourself as point of improvement in England?
The best thing happened was Mental Health for All project, who provided the funding for this podcast. This podcast could happen because they gave me a chance, and they've done amazing work in lived experience. It started with NIH, our National Institution of Health Research, funding through applied research collaborations in the UK, looking for ways to bring previous service users and lived experience practitioners into research. And there were all sorts of works. So there were workshops we created. There is a people's panel I'm a member of, where researchers come, sometimes consult, sometimes co-design projects. We have had conference together, and we have a very wide network. Unfortunately, the funding ended, so not only Mental Health for All is closing right now, but also Arc North Thames won't exist, but there will be a Pan London equivalent of it, and hopefully they will continue the work. So there are bouts of investments and good work, but sustainability is an issue.
Well, thank you.